Good afternoon, dear friends. This is Ruslan Belov. We continue to explore the situation on the front lines with you in our daily format. Today's episode will be very interesting, so make sure to watch it until the end, as we will analyze and visually demonstrate how absurd Zelensky's statement is regarding the Ukrainian armed forces' Kursk operation allegedly stabilizing the front, meaning it has fulfilled its objectives and stabilized the front. I will show you all of this today. We will look at how the front lines have changed since August 6th of last year, when the Ukrainian armed forces launched their Kursk operation, and this will immediately reveal how nonsensical Zelensky's claims are. So without further delay, let's open the map together. So the finale of the Kursk battle is getting closer and closer. Yesterday, the Russian army achieved additional successes, not only in the Kursk region, but also in the Sumi region. This is why the Ukrainian authorities announced the mandatory evacuation of 8 settlements in the Sumi region yesterday. Since the bridgehead here is steadily expanding, I mean the bridgehead of the Russian army, you can already see on the map that the total area of the bridgehead in the Sumi region has exceeded 40 square kilometers. Part of this area is a grey zone, while another part, such as the village of Novenka and the entire territory west of it, up to Basovka, is under stable and indisputable control. Additionally, as the head of the Sumi Regional Military Administration stated yesterday, Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups are already infiltrating the region along the entire border. I literally talked about this yesterday. It is also reported by many sources that due to the collapse of the Ukrainian armed forces front, a large number of reinforcements are being transferred to the Sumi region from other directions. For example, from the Pokrovsk region, where frontline soldiers immediately noticed that Ukrainian attacks had completely ceased, and Russian troops began retaking positions that had been lost earlier. The Ukrainian Armed Forces Command fully understands what will happen if the front in the Sumi region collapses. Then the failed Kursk operation will be completely indefensible to their people. What were the tens of thousands of casualties for if Russian troops have already entered the Sumi region? This is the dilemma facing the Ukrainian Armed Forces Command and the political leadership of Ukraine. It is important to understand that the main forces are still engaged in clearing the Kursk region. What will happen when the Kursk region is completely liberated, and not just sabotage and reconnaissance groups, but the main army advances along the entire border? The Ukrainian side understands this as well. This is why they announced the evacuation of nearby villages up to Yunakovka. As for the Kursk region itself, the final battles for the remaining villages are underway. For example, the village of Rubanshchino was cleared yesterday. This village is located to the west of the Sudzhan agglomeration. Additionally, battles were fought for Gogolevka. American cartographers, this is an American map, have not yet updated the map, so Gogolevka is still marked as under Ukrainian armed forces control. But in fact, during yesterday's battles, the Ukrainian armed forces were driven out of the village. Some retreated to the checkpoint, while others fell back to Oleshnya. But battles for Oleshnya itself have already begun. Yesterday, the Russian army advanced 3 kilometers along the road leading to the Sumi region from Goncharovka and secured positions on the southern outskirts of Oleshnya. By the way, the claim that the military command allegedly ordered not to touch the Ukrainian armed forces and to let them leave the Kursk region is complete nonsense. No such order was given, and no such orders will be given. Surrender? Yes, that's possible. But no one will organize a corridor for the Ukrainian armed forces to leave. Well, let's move on. So here, everything is practically decided. At the very least, by the end of the weekend, this entire territory will be fully under control. Since Gogolevka has been taken, the entire area to the north is already a grey zone, and by the end of the day, I think it will be cleared. The only remaining question is Oleshnya, but considering that the assault on the village began yesterday, I think we will receive good news today. As for Zelensky's statement, this thought actually came to me about 20 minutes before I sat down to record this video. So look, Zelensky stated yesterday that the Kursk operation has fulfilled its purpose. What purpose, you might ask? It turns out it allegedly stabilized the front in the Pokrovsk and Kharkiv regions. You know, this is such nonsense that can be refuted with just one glance at the map. Let's take a look together right now. Let's rewind to August 2024. specifically August 6, 2024, the day the Kursk invasion began. Now let's move to the Pokrovsk front. Zelensky claimed that the situation there was stabilized thanks to the Kursk operation. So what do we see? Here's the front line as of August 6, 2024. Do you see it? This is the line of contact as of August 6, 2024. Tell me, does this look like stabilization after an invasion? This is a huge territory. Over 2,000 square kilometers have come under Russian control. Once again, over 2,000 square kilometers. While the Ukrainian armed forces were pouring all their resources into the Kursk operation, capturing only one small town, Sudzha, and a few dozen villages, which, by the way, have now all been retaken by the Russian army. The Russian forces gained 2,000 square kilometers on this section of the front alone, plus cities like Ugledar, Krasnohorivka, Kurakova, Hirnik, Ukrainsk, Selidov, Novogorodovka, and so on. In other words, Ukraine has lost 7 cities, about 100 villages, and 2,000 square kilometers on just one section of the front, the Pokrovsk sector. And Zelensky considers this stabilization. All right. Again, there's also the Kharkiv region. While the Ukrainian armed forces were focusing on the Kursk operation, the Dvoroshensk bridgehead was created. And overall, Ukraine lost another 300 square kilometers in the Kharkiv region, gaining nothing in return. Now let's return to the Kursk region. As of now, on Saturday, the Ukrainian armed forces are holding on, barely clinging to 3 villages and 60 square kilometers. By this weekend, they won't even have that. Again, the assault on Oleshnya is already underway. Plus, troops have approached Guyeva closely. I think the assault on this village will begin today. And with the fall of Guyeva, the Kursk bridgehead will come to an end for the Ukrainian armed forces, because there will be nothing left for them to hold. What can I say? The outcome of a battle is not determined in the moment, but at the end. For the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region, that end has now arrived. In total, Russia has gained over 3,000 square kilometers if we count all sections of the front, while Ukraine has ended up with 0. Actually, not even 0. Now, on top of 0, they have additional problems in the Sumi region, and these problems will only grow in the near future. But according to Zelensky, the Kursk operation stabilized the situation on the front. Who believes that? I don't know. Maybe someone does. Meanwhile, the Russian army is valiantly fulfilling its task of liberating the Kursk region. Once again, only 60 square kilometers remain, and I think, at the current pace, by the end of the weekend or the beginning of next week, it will all be over, and the entire Kursk region will be liberated. With this, I congratulate the residents of the Kursk region. On the Zaporizhia direction, the Orikhiv sector, reports continue to come in about the developing situation. Units of the Russian armed forces, after engaging in battles for Mali-Shcherbaki, have advanced towards the settlement of Shcherbaki. These actions indicate the intention of the Russian Armed Forces Command to achieve a breakthrough in the Ukrainian Armed Forces defense on this section of the front. One of the likely immediate tasks may be to encircle Orikhiv from the western direction, as well as to use drones to disrupt supply routes for the Ukrainian Armed Forces Group in the Orikhiv area. Moreover, given the logic of the situation, we can expect increased activity on this section of the front, as without further development, the breakthrough may not lead to significant operational results. Well, that's all for today on the situation at the front. I wish you all a good weekend.